Welcome to Beyond the Desk Admin Advocates, where we explore what it truly means to be an administrative professional in today's world. I'm Melissa Mahoney, CEO of the International Association of Administrative Professionals.
And I'm Rachel Suman, CXO of IAAP. We're not just leaders in this field. We're advocates, champions, and former admins ourselves.
That's right, Rachel. This podcast isn't your typical industry talk. We're here to bring you real conversations, real stories, and real solutions.
From AI to self-awareness journeys, we're here to discuss the deep issues that admins face every day, drawing from our own experiences and those of our community.
So whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out on your administrative journey, join us as we explore the highs, the lows, and everything in between.
Get ready for authentic insights, candid conversations, and a whole lot of inspiration. This is Beyond the Desk Admin Advocates.
Hey everyone, Mel and Rachel here again. We are on episode episode 8.
Yes.
And we really wanted to spend some time. We teased this in our last episode, so this might not be a surprise to some of you, but we want to spend some time talking through a Summit 2024 recap. And we do not want this to be a commercial for Summit, although it's kind of hard for us to talk about Summit and not try to sell you on it because we think it's incredible and amazing.
We love it.
We'll do our very best to talk about, some of the things that we think are really valuable about Summit. Because if you weren't able to join us in New York or online this year for Summit, we really do hope that you can plan for joining us in Chicago and Summit 2025, or even joining us virtually for Summit 2025. So we just want to give you some highlights, some insights. I actually would love to kick us off just by asking Rachel, I'm so going to put you on the spot right now.
That's okay.
What is your absolute favorite moment from Summit 2024?
Oh gosh, that is a loaded question. I think that my favorite from this year, and this is my 11th Summit, so there's a lot, but this year, one of the things that was so impactful for me in such beautiful ways is our Parade of Nations. And for those of you who aren't aware of it, we start every summit with a flag parade, kind of like picture the Olympics. The Olympics are happening and, many of us watch the opening ceremonies and kind of the showing of the worldwide impact there. We do something very similar at Summit, and it is flags that are representative of members or audience participants for Summit. And this year, we had the immense privilege of having a spoken word artist actually present a beautiful custom piece that she had written for us. Her name was Lyrical Faith. And that combined, like the words of that, and we're going to, spoiler alert, like we'll have opportunities for you to read this poem and participate in some way because it's amazing and brilliant and showcases the profession and IAAP in amazing ways. And seeing that combined with the Parade of Nations and recognizing just how much of an impact IAAP has, the profession has, and knowing that each of those flags represents a person, represents a body that is a member of our community, like ugly cry does not even begin to describe it. Like you and I were both, I think, crying every time I heard it, holding back sobs, ugly crying. And that was my favorite this year.
I would say the exact same. You didn't ask me, but I'm going to tell you anyway.
I was going to.
I knew you were going to. Same. And for all of those reasons, I believe it is an indescribable experience, especially for those of us who are doing this work day in and day out on the staff side of IAAP. We get to talk to folks pretty consistently from all over the world in our work, but to see that visual artistic display of our impact, bringing that to life on stage and This is something that Rachel and I have been envisioning and talking about for a very long time. So
Years.
by the time it reaches the stage moment and it comes to life, there's even a really impactful emotional connection that we have to that because we have put so much work and effort into bringing it to life. And so when it happens, you know, yes, the poem was just incredible. The response from the audience and the attendees
Yes.
affirmed like her words were people were hearing those words in their souls. Like it
Mhm.
just was that impactful. So to experience all of that from our very privileged viewpoint and perspective was so incredibly emotional. And I am not usually an overly emotive person. Not that I have emotions, I display them, but I'm usually fairly reserved. I don't cry too terribly often. And I'm not kidding. Every time we heard her, even in rehearsals, like there was part of me that wanted to like run out of the room so that I could experience it for the first time in real time. And we couldn't do that. But it was even more, I think, emotional when it happened live
Mhm.
for real with the audience participation and engagement and their experience being part of our experience. So that international component, it's easy for us, especially here in North America. Yes, we have a world now that is more accessible because we have the internet and we have Meet, Zoom, we have access to folks in ways that we didn't have, 15, 20 years ago.
Mhm.
So it is easier to connect with folks internationally, but then to actually connect with the culture, the meaning, the reason why those connections are so valuable and provide such rich tapestry to decision making, to our world, to our work, to the reason we do the things we do and why it's different, how it changes or is different based on cultures, based on experiences, even based on time zones,
Mhm.
quite literally that can be a real barrier for some of our international folks. So knowing all of those things and having all of that in our tapestry, the representation of that from an artistic perspective was so moving.
Mhm.
It's one of my favorite things from every summit, but
Mhm.
this year really was different. It had it touched me in a different way. I experienced it in a way I never had before. And we had some flags present for this year's Parade of Nations from some tribal nations here in North America for
Yes.
the first time ever. And to see the flags there was impactful, but then to see the attendees engage and interact and be moved by the presence and representation of those flags
Mhm.
in in the Parade of Nations and then on the stage, that has tremendous, I mean, it has tremendous impact, but it sticks with
Mhm.
those of us on team. So there were multiple people on team who talked about that part of the experience and seeing in real time some
Mhm.
of the impacts that our work is having beyond the traditional. You're getting training, you're getting certification, you're getting these tangible things from IAAP. So yes, agree.
And it was, I agree. I mean, I do usually cry at Parade of Nations. That's like a yearly experience for me. It was different this year. I don't normally ugly cry. Like a couple of tears rolling down the cheek
Yes.
is normally what I experience. And this year was like, keep it together. But getting to see, like, I think, and maybe this has happened in years past and I haven't noticed it, but more so this year, I feel like I saw so many people on stage posing for photos with the flag, like that, what you're talking about, like truly that. I saw several posts on social media about the impact that seeing those flags had on the people that came from those nations, those countries, and having like being seen as part of that. Just yeah, it really did. And that's kind of the magic. We were going to talk about this anyway, but the magic of Summit is that, like, it's that plus so many things, but we have amazing training. We have fabulous content. Like all of that is true. And so do a lot of other organizations. Like there's fabulous content everywhere. And I feel like the magic of Summit really is those experiences. It is the energy that you feel when you're in the room with your fellow admins and your peers who are experiencing this. I heard from several people that were like, this helped me see a clarity that I didn't have before. We had a panelist on our Discover the Possibilities panel. Her experience happened in 2022, but it helped her get unstuck. Like it was the catalyst to see a possibility in a future that she hadn't seen before. We saw several posts from people this year that happened for them this year, and that is the magic dust that is Summit.
Very much agree with that. I mean, I think you can get great content for development and training in a lot of places. And we are here to tell you that IAAP's content is stellar,
Yes.
but you can find content in a lot of places. There are plenty of people who are doing a phenomenal job of
Yes.
providing content for admins and not just for, I mean, you can benefit from all kinds of content. So I actually really tend to advocate to folks to look for content in places you wouldn't normally think to look. So
Mhm.
it's not just admin organizations who have relevant or stellar content, depending on the industry you
Mhm.
work in. There might be some industry focused or specific content. So all that to say, there's lots of really great training and education out there. There's lots of opportunities for that. IAAP provides a fabulous, fabulous array of training and education. But what really sets this experience apart is that community magic, what happens inside of the summit experience, the connecting with other individuals, the energy, to your point, there is this buzz that starts to happen. And I think we are really, not I think, I know we are really challenging each other to think about what inclusion looks like for that experience, because let's be really honest, not everybody feels great about walking into a room that
Mhm.
is buzzing with activity or noise or energy. Even that meter of energy, when it gets too high, there are folks that can't handle that or feel the need to disengage. And so
Mhm.
we're constantly challenging ourselves around how to create that experience for everyone, no
Yeah.
matter how they prefer or can connect or contribute to a space like that. And I don't think we have it 100% right. We always have room and
Mhm.
opportunity for improvement, but we are trying really hard to hear from folks about that, so that, because I know from experience, just the idea of going to a conference can be anxiety inducing for
Yeah.
some people. So what I would love is for people to understand, number one, we're trying to accommodate for
Mhm.
those challenges as much as we possibly can, remove any barriers that we have the ability to remove, and create a truly inclusive experience where everyone gets to experience
Mhm.
that magic, no matter how they experience the world. So
Yeah.
there's a place and a space for everyone. And I think, even referring back to the Parade of Nations and why that was so impactful, when we talk about these different experiences culturally, we talk about our context and what we know, what brings us comfort. There's a real great harmony and balance here, where we hope we can provide some challenge for people to step outside of their comfort zone,
Mhm.
but not when it is a legitimate barrier to their inclusion in the space.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
because that is our intention and our goal, I think that sets this experience apart from some of the other very traditional, you know, what you're getting, what to expect when you walk into a conference. We hope that ours is not
Yeah.
that. We hope it is surprising in many ways. And we hope it can also be a beacon to people who maybe wouldn't feel comfortable or confident attending a traditional 1,000 plus people
Mhm.
education or training conference.
Yeah.
So that part of the experience that we keep working to curate, and again, I think we have lots of opportunity
Mhm.
to keep expanding that idea, keep expanding the language we use, keep expanding what type of presence, what type of representation we have with trainers and speakers who are our partners
Mhm.
in this. So when they step on that stage, yes, they have their own identity and their own brand, but we're expecting them to align
Yeah.
to our DEI standards, our brand. And when we miss the mark on that, or there's opportunity there, we're committed. We just had an entire team conversation about how
Mhm.
we can do this even better next year, and what conversations do we owe some of our partners and trainers, and what conversations do we need to have with our community? What conversations do we need to hear from
Mhm.
our community so that we can make that experience, elevate that experience more, create that more unique, dynamic, inclusive conference experience that no one else is offering. And I hope other people do offer
Mhm.
it. So that's not even a statement of exclusivity, because really our mission is dependent upon the expansion of this work.
Yeah.
So if that expansion isn't necessarily through the IAAP channel, it might be through another channel.
Mhm.
Great.
Mhm.
If we can create replication of this out in the world, and if we are open to receiving whatever is out there that we don't know, that we
Mhm.
can't see right now, that is how we create success. So I think that was another interesting outcome that I maybe wasn't expecting from this year's summit, is there was some conversation about the future of IAAP and,
Mhm.
you know, what does it look like? Is there opportunity to partner or merge with other organizations who are out there doing very similar work to us? And while there are very legalistic, specific reasons why we can't merge with other organizations unless they are truly a nonprofit
Mhm.
association, and there aren't any others in North America right now who represent the entire administrative community. There are some very niche
Mhm.
legal secretaries association, instant not instant, virtual
Virtual.
assistants. There are a couple of associations for virtual assistants. There's a medical assistants association. So there are some very specific industry and or types of admin roles associations, and we have opportunity to partner with those folks, and they would be the only ones we could merge, if I can say it like that. But
Air
because we're
quote.
a nonprofit, we can't be bought.
Mhm.
That's not an option for nonprofits. It's very different than the corporate world, where you've got mergers and acquisitions happening all the time. The nonprofit space is much different from that. And we are,
Mhm.
from an IRS perspective, from a legal perspective, we are an organized nonprofit. So I thought it was a really interesting
Mhm.
conversation that came up at Summit, but it actually sparked for Rachel and I a conversation about the future of Summit. And so I think we also just wanted to talk a little bit about what that might look like and what it maybe doesn't
Mhm.
look
Yeah.
like. Because I think bigger is not always better.
No, absolutely not. Well, and as you were talking about inclusivity, I was thinking about another piece that we are really intentional about with inclusion that plays really nicely into the bigger is not always better. But our virtual offering, the fact that this conference is hybrid, is incredibly unique, especially as COVID kind of continues to show up further and further in our rearview mirror. I'm seeing a lot, even not even within the admin organization space, but just in conferences in general. People are leaving the virtual experience behind. They are focusing more on 100% in-person conferences, or they are doing exclusive virtual conferences, and there's not a lot of hybrid experiences out there, which is not good, bad, right, wrong. It just is. But I think we do it exceptionally well. There's always opportunities for improvement. So I'm not going to say we are perfect at it. There's no such thing. But being able to connect the in-person attendees with the virtual attendees, I will never forget our first year that we did hybrid was 2022. And we always have moderators who are in the chat answering questions. They are on-site staff who are helping support the virtual experience. We've got lots of things doing that, but that is one aspect that we support. And somebody added a note in the chat and said that they were differently abled and would never be able to attend Summit if we did not offer a virtual option. And they loved being able to participate. And that has stuck with me for this long, because that is inclusion. Like that is if that is one aspect, but that is such an important aspect of inclusion. That is one story about how people can actually participate in this amazing experience that we are describing, whether you can fly to somewhere or not. And so I just, for going back to your point about bigger is not always better, like sometimes that means more people virtually can join. Sometimes that means that looks a lot of different ways. And we have that lens in place, like that inclusion. How can we have more people access this amazing experience is really what we want to do.
And I actually believe what you were just talking about is a highlight or a showcase of the difference between the work that we do as a nonprofit versus the for-profit industries.
Mhm.
And this is not even specific to admin organizations. This is across industries, across business, period, even across some other associations.
Yeah.
Not to call anyone, I'm not going to call anyone out specifically, but we have heard from leaders across lots of industries, executives who are sitting in decision-making seats like we are, boards who are making decisions about the future of organizations, who made decisions to remove the hybrid from their events because, number one, they were worried about cannibalizing the
Mhm.
in-person
Mhm.
attendance, revenue, all of the things that includes. And number two, because they were concerned about creating an experience, essentially bifurcating
Mhm.
the focus of the event. So it requires a lot of thought, a lot of work, a lot of, everyone. This is really where I think even we have a better opportunity. Everyone who gets up on that stage to speak to the audience needs to recognize and realize there are two audiences, one we can see, one we cannot. So
Yep.
including and involving the audience that's a big deal. That's a big ask for people on the stage. And it is legitimately a difficult thing to do
Yeah.
in the room. And so they're like, it's not worth the time, energy, effort, and money and cost to do all of those things. So
Mhm.
we're going to go back to fully in person. We can do that really well. We're not cannibalizing any of that. And from our perspective, those things are true for
Yeah.
us as well.
Yeah.
They're
Mhm.
legitimate concerns for us. And those are not our priorities. Our
Mm.
priority is accessibility. It
Yeah.
is one of our strategic goals.
Yeah.
So, in order for us to be in alignment with our mission and our strategy, that has to be the priority. How
Mhm.
are we giving the most admins access
Mhm.
as we possibly can? And so, when we say bigger is not better, we mean if the conference grows to 3,000 people, is that going to impact the access to the experience to the people in the room?
Yeah.
Accessibility will be the priority, not profit.
Yeah.
Revenue is not going to be the decision-making priority. We are making a profit to achieve our mission.
Yeah.
The mission does not support profit. So in the for-profit industry, it is opposite,
Mhm.
which again, this is not a judgment statement. This is
Mhm.
just literally the way that the different business models are designed
Yeah.
to work. When you work in a for-profit structure, you have a mission. You can be absolutely passionate about that mission. You can have strategy to support that mission, but your mission supports profit.
Yeah.
The reason you exist is to generate a profit for an owner, profit for, whoever the idea generator is for the business. You might be a single business owner, you're trying to earn a living.
Mhm.
Completely fair and valid, not right or wrong,
Yeah.
different. It is different than how we are organized. So it's even that has come into play even in our decision making around why we offer the hybrid experience,
Mhm.
even though it presents a much deeper set of challenges, lots of opportunities there for us to keep challenging ourselves and improving. And it's a lot of time. It's a lot of time, energy, and effort that we put into creating as equitable of an experience as we possibly can.
Mhm.
And equity doesn't mean same.
Right.
It's impossible for us to create the same experience, but we do want it to be equitable from an access to community, access to the magic of Summit,
Mhm.
experiencing content in a way that is really meaningful to you,
Mhm.
even if you're sitting behind a screen versus being in the room.
Yeah.
Those are all things that are priorities for us because we are driven mission first.
Yeah.
So when we create revenue and generate profit, which we absolutely do, and we have to do that to sustain
Right.
our organization, to sustain the mission, to
Mhm.
continue to invest in our mission, to expand our mission, we need that profit to generate more mission
Yeah.
centric work. But the mission is at the top. The profit supports the mission, not the other way around.
Mm.
So it was an interesting discussion that came up in Summit that sparked all kinds of really great discussion and dialogue with the community in the room. Some of that came up during community conversations, which I absolutely loved. That's one of my favorite parts of Summit because the I love hearing and engaging with our community in that way. And it gave us some really great things to consider as we move forward with Summit. So we may not necessarily be looking to grow attendance numbers at Summit in the future. We may be looking to grow access
Yeah.
for Summit. So this is, we are not saying anything. I don't want
Do
people
not
to
hold us to
hear,
any of these
yeah,
things.
don't hold us to any of this, but I just want to share some of the ideation around like how we are innovating around Summit. So it might look like different opportunities throughout the year. So it's not
Mhm.
just one Summit happens one time a year and that's the only time you can access it.
Yeah.
That might be a consideration for us in the future is there opportunity to shift that to multiple times per year, or does that create more access for folks?
Mhm.
Or are there smaller portions of Summit that can be replicated or provided inside of organizations? Now we have the organizational membership. So how can we infuse some of this content directly into organizations because we know they can't send 500 admins all at the same time to
Right.
come to Summit, which is another barrier
Yeah.
for some of our organizations. So these are all questions that we're considering that are not from a place of bigger, more profit, more revenue. They are from a place of how do we give this experience and content to more admins
Yeah.
and in different modalities?
Yeah, absolutely. Because we, to that point, like we hear from so many people we've seen on LinkedIn, we're seeing on all of these different platforms, people recapping their experience. And it's so beautiful. Like if you are somebody who did that, thank you. Like keep it coming. It is so impactful. Like we have ways to elicit feedback from everyone. And there's something so organic and beautiful in the recaps on the socials that I just have to give a shout out and keep that coming. And we need more of that. Like we had just under 1,000 people in person. I think we had a little less than 200 virtual with
Virtually.
us.
Mhm.
And that's amazing. And that means that there were a whole lot of admins who did not get to access that experience and were experiencing it through their peers, which is great, but they need to experience that themselves. Like that's that magic. There's not, it's tough to experience secondhand magic. I just made that up. I don't know if that's a thing, but it's true. Like there's something about hearing about a magic show versus going and actually witnessing the magic that happens. And I think Summit is very similar in that respect. So the more we can create those opportunities for people to experience it for themselves, like Yes. Always yes.
Very much so. So we have been chatting about how long our podcast episodes have been recently. And I am so grateful and love and adore that so many of you are listening for the extended amount of time that we have been rambling on in our podcast, but we're really working hard to create maybe some shorter episodes so that it's not such a big commitment of your time.
Maybe not
And
an
I do love, I've
indulgent.
seen like, I cleaned my kitchen. My kitchen is clean because I watched or I listened to the podcast while I was cleaning. Love it.
Yes.
And if we can make that a 30-minute experience instead of an hour and 15 minutes, we would be happy with that. So we're not setting a time limit necessarily, but for this episode specifically, especially since we were focusing on Summit, we were trying very hard to be as succinct as possible and give you a shorter podcast episode. So I really do hope that this creates a spark for you to get really curious about Summit 2025 or any other of the experiences that IAAP has to offer. And it really sparks some interest for you. And if we can help you in that journey, anybody on our HQ team would love to talk to you about Summit because everyone on our team is just as excited about Summit 2025 as we are. The team was literally talking about it in the airport as we were headed home from New York, which has never happened.
Never.
Usually we are so exhausted by that point that we're like, we can't even think about anything. Just please, can we get some rest and rejuvenation? And we were just buzzing with ideas and thoughts about how to make Summit 2025 spectacular for every person who comes virtually or in person. So
Yes.
I hope we will see you in Chicago or online from Chicago when we host in July of 2025.
Yes. Yes. We will open registration very soon. So keep an eye on inboxes and socials and all of the things.
It might even be open by the time this podcast drops.
Oh, from your lips. But whenever,
speaking it into
speak it into the universe, please. But yes, we would absolutely love if there's anything we can do to support that for you so that you can present that as an opportunity to your organization. Let us know. We hope to see you.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
See y'all later. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Beyond the Desk Admin Advocates. We hope you enjoyed diving deep into the world of admins with us.
Remember, this podcast isn't just about listening, it's about taking action. Whether it's advocating for yourself in the workplace or supporting your fellow admins, let's continue to elevate this profession together. If you have any thoughts, questions, or topics you'd like us to explore in future episodes, don't hesitate to reach out to us on social media or through our website.
Until next time, keep pushing beyond the desk. And remember, change begins with you. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.